So firstly, I want to get started today by talking about gut instinct. Now, gut instinct is a feeling that you will all be very, very familiar with in this room. And it's a feeling that you'll be used to relying on in both your professional and also your personal lives. Now, I've got no clicker. It's being temperamental. It's not working. No.
Okay.
We're back. We're back. So my gut instinct today told me something was going to go wrong, and that was it. So we'll kickstart things again. So gut instinct is defined as an immediate basic feeling or reaction without logical rationale. Now, it's that feeling that's in your tummy, and it helps you make that decision, whether it's yes or no or right or wrong. Now, I know that I rely on this feeling when I'm doing outreach. And in the research for this, I took to Twitter, and gosh, it's really slow. There we go. I took to Twitter and asked the Twitter sphere and people in our industry who else was relying on gut instinct when it came to outreach and PR. So are you making these decisions to launch on a Monday based on that innate feeling, or avoid the Monday? Now, the results shone through, and 3/4 of us are using gut instinct to make those all-important outreach decisions, with 24% of us instead relying on data. So, this is going to happen every time I try and change slides now. Guys, have you got another clicker?
I can be nod and click through.
Okay, thank you. So we're all using gut feels in life with outreach because experience takes over. Now, we know what's been a success and we want to take that forward, and we know what's been a fail, and actually we want to make sure we avoid that situation again. So instinct takes over because planning a launch day can be really, really risky. We're waiting on so many different moving parts of this puzzle, all coming together at once. That can be approvals, getting the campaign live on the site, and also just journalists even being in the office on that day. Now, this is something that the team and I at Era Digital know better than most. And back in 2016, I was the first PR hire and was part of a team of just 2. Now, Laura and I relied solely on gut instinct when it came to launching these campaigns. Skipping forward a couple of years, we're at a team of 5 or 6, and I can guarantee that every face up on that slide has relied on gut instinct when it comes to speaking to journalists or doing outreach. Now, fast forward to 2019, and you can see the entire team are probably still using this feeling. They're stood right there, probably nodding away. They're using gut instinct when it comes to outreach and PR. So, as a team, we've secured thousands of links based on our gut instincts, but here's a couple of examples of where we've been able to secure those. So we've got everything from national sites right through to industry press as well. Now, I'm going to be a little bit awkward and call my own team out on something. And actually, we could have secured more. I believe that we could have done better. Now, here's some examples of some campaigns where we've relied on gut instinct to take us forward and deliver links. Campaign number 1, we followed gut instinct, and it's worked really, really well. So here's a campaign that we launched for Travel Supermarket. It's at a time when actually the Instagram campaigns were really big in our industry, and we were able to analyse hashtags in order to pull out the most popular beaches around the world. It performed really well. It got 158 pieces of coverage, including 66 followed links, was shortlisted for some awards, but gut instinct told me that we had to get this out in June. Now, we had to get this out in June before other travel brands were talking about beach content, and there was also a Beach Awareness Day as well, coming at the back end of July. So we wanted to let things settle for a couple of weeks and then go out again to generate some more links. A second example then, when we had ignored gut instinct and actually lived to regret it. So this is a campaign to this day that still breaks my heart. Now, it's for one of our clients, RS Components, and I love the design, I love the story. This is a GIF that reveals how quickly we will go through, or the USA will go through oil reserves if they carry on using it at the same rate. So you're able to hit that watch it disappear button, the oil drum would sink, we were comparing it to the Empire State Building. It was simple. I was really excited about launching it, but there was a bit of a problem. And I launched this campaign with the team, just here, with this bubble. Now, going back a few years, can anyone remember in 2016 what was pretty big news in America? This guy. So it's fair to say that I didn't listen to gut instinct in this sense. The US press and media was so saturated by the fact that this guy had won the US presidential election, no one really cared about my neat little GIF around oil. And actually, I should have listened to my own gut instinct and probably held off outreaching that campaign so that I could deliver when the media had quietened down and made sure that I had kind of the room to do the outreach and breathe. Now, my final example of where gut instinct has kind of been involved with what we do at Era is when you have a really good feeling about a campaign and there have been doubts about it, but you go for it anyway. So behold the mighty brain teaser. Now, this is something that a few of you in the room will know the trend of, and they are really kind of quick turnaround pieces. So we worked with a leading laser eye surgeon in Harley Street down in London, and ahead of Christmas wanted to do a spot the style graphic just to kind of jump on the bandwagon of a quick reactive piece. Now, this campaign spent half a day in design, and at 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, it was up and live on the client's site. My gut told me to launch it, and that's exactly what we went out and did. Now, most people, and I'm a traditional PR, launching a campaign on a Friday afternoon, absolute cardinal sin. You wouldn't do it. I probably would have been thrown out of the meeting in my old job for even suggesting such a thing. But it worked. We got coverage on the MailOnline, including a link. We got OK, Telegraph, and in the run-up to Christmas, this secured 16 pieces of coverage, all of which had followed links in them. So you're probably scratching your heads and thinking, what's the issue around gut instinct? Well, actually, there's quite a big one. So we all remember the instances when gut instinct was right and it doesn't fail us. But actually, there are times when it's wrong, and those are the ones that we try and push to the back of our minds, and we try to forget about them. So who's launched a campaign that you were sure would be a certain success, but actually it failed miserably? Yeah, I've just showed you mine. There's been a few more along the road as well. So to make way and improve things, this proves that link building is incredibly inconsistent, and we need to find a way of making things more consistent. Because the truth of the matter is, in our industry, relying on instinct alone when it comes to outreach is going to make for incredibly inconsistent results. And inconsistent results make for really, really difficult conversation. Again, this is something that at Era, we've experienced it. So this is an actual email from a client that I received at the end of January, so early parts of February. And he says, I just wanted to get your view on how January unfolded. It was below par in terms of a link building front. What exactly do you put that down to? Now, the hardest part of this email, he's a really nice guy. I want to do well for this client. He's even asked me, Pia, how are you? Have you had a good weekend? Before challenging me on results. So we need a way to rely less on gut instinct and find a way of making better informed outreach decisions. Better informed outreach decisions will make way for more consistent results, and I can assure you, you won't be receiving emails like I did earlier in the year. So, what's the solution? Well, we use data and process when it comes to campaign production, and here's an example of exactly when Era have done that. So my boss, Paddy Mugan, stood on stage at Learn Inbound around a year or so ago, and we analysed every single link that Era had built and every single content campaign that we had ever launched to come up with some concrete statistics that would help inform our content production strategies. Here was one of the key insights. So we were able to reveal that actually interactive campaigns, on average, receive the highest amount of links when we were doing outreach for them, but that's closely followed by statics and GIF. So we're able to take that forward, and we actually use a combination of the top 3 there whenever we're coming up with content strategies for clients that relate to link acquisition. So if we're using data when it comes to content production, then why aren't we using data in a better way when it comes to outreach? Some of us are using outreach when it comes to, some of us are using software when it comes to outreach, and we are as well. You know, we're using BuzzStream to monitor open rates, subject lines, and help with automation to try and make this whole thing easier. But who's using data from the actual sites that give out the links? And that's where this whole talk came from. I wanted to start at that point and work backwards so that we could have some concrete data and insights that then prove or disprove our gut feels. So that's where the numbers start to come in. And we set up one huge scrape, thanks to the guys at Screaming Frog. That was the scraper tool we used, and we got a little bit of help along the way. We looked at 6 national news sites and analysed more than 35,000 articles. Now, I have to caveat here that the 35,000 articles is only a fraction of what publishers do put out live on their site, but it was enough that we could start to take some concrete statistics from that we could then use and inform with our outreach strategies. So the 6 sites we looked at then, we've got the Telegraph, Star, Sun, MailOnline, Express, and Independent. Now, we stuck with these 6 because a lot of other national sites are behind paywalls, and actually these are the 6 sites that mean the most to our clients. In terms of what to scrape, look at things like site URL, really, really important to get things like external links in the article, and also journalist name, publishing dates. I will be showing my slides after this, so you'll be able to kind of have a look then if you want to set up a scrape like that yourself. And what was the result then? Well, here it is. One enormous spreadsheet that kept crashing my computer. But what we were actually able to do as a result of this scrape is start to push data with gut feels in order to make way for more consistent outreach results. In terms of key findings then, so again, another caveat, these are really, really open to interpretation. These are just how I've interpreted them. But if you were going to set up your own scrape in different industries, then the stats and the research will be open for you guys as well. Now, I've split this section into 3 really digestible chunks. We're going to cover launches, links, and subject lines. Let's kickstart things with launches then, and the all-important question, when is the best day to launch your campaign? Now, naturally, my gut feel, again, going back to my traditional PR roots, says don't go anywhere near a Monday or a Friday. Steer completely clear, go for midweek. But what does our data say? And it's actually really interesting. So, graph number 1, best day to launch in travel. Now, I've made these assumptions on the day that the most articles are produced and go live on news sites. And what we can see is there's a clear spike on a Friday with how many articles are pushed live. Therefore, that makes me think journalists are hungry for new content and new stories. And as outreachers, link builders, content marketers, we should be giving it to them on that day. Now, I'm not standing here and saying everyone needs to be launching their campaigns on a Friday, but we shouldn't be scared to talk to the press on that day. They actually want new stories. They want to be pushing things live on that day. Really, really similar story then with the automotive space. So Friday, again, shining through. If you're working with an automotive brand or in-house client, whatever it may be, don't discount Friday as the day that you should be speaking to the press. Keeping on the same theme then, we've got science. So actually Monday here, shining through as the day that you should be speaking to the press and considering launching your campaigns. What's really interesting with this slide is that you've got Saturdays and Sundays. Article production and how many go live on the site significantly drops down. So it's probably safer to launch your campaign at the start of that week because actually they're not scheduling anything over the weekend. And technology then, now this is the one sector that actually ties in with our gut feel. And Wednesday is the best day to be speaking to the press and thinking about launching your campaign. Finance, really interesting that actually half of the articles produced in comparison to any other site, we're seeing a real significant drop-off here in terms of numbers of features going live, but nicely, Thursday shining through. So what's interesting then is if we take a step back from those graphs, and 3 out of 5 sectors show that a Monday or a Friday is actually a good day to be speaking to the press, according to the amount of articles produced. So again, touching on that point, I get it. Fridays and Mondays make me incredibly nervous too, and I'm not standing here saying, right, tomorrow, go back in and launch your campaigns. What I'm trying to do is incite that thinking that it's not a bad thing to be speaking with the press on that day. So this is something that I was interested in and wanted to do a little bit of more research. So I started to speak to the journalists and the guys that actually give us the links themselves to see what they thought of the matter. A journalist at the MailOnline says, no, really doesn't matter what day you're actually launching your campaign. It all comes down to the time that it's sent. And to support that, again, another journalist at The Sun, just make sure it's before 8:30 and definitely not on a Friday afternoon. So my tip here then is start outreach on that day with the highest level of articles produced, because journalists are hungry, they're looking for content, they're looking for stories, and if a lot of us are already avoiding those days, naturally competition's a little bit less when you're speaking to the press. Sticking on the theme of launches then, who should we be building those all-important relationships with before launch day? Now, it would be really difficult for me to stand here and include a whole ton of journalists' names. I'd probably burn my own relationships, and obviously GDPR gives us a bit of a headache. So instead, I turned to my favourite TV show, Game of Thrones. Now, that allowed me to give the various publications up here, different houses, represent the different publications, and then we've got different characters over here as well that represent the different journalists. So if we click forward one slide, we can see that House Lannister, which is one of those titles out of the 6, are the most prolific writers in the travel industry. These are the guys we should be trying to build relationships with and for in order to make our outreach far more successful. And actually, it really works. Again, this is something that we trialed back at Era. So when we did those splits ourselves, I dropped a journalist again, another one at the MailOnline, a note and said, we're working with a new client in this specific industry. Have you got time to have a quick chat? And he said, yeah, sure. Give me a bell at some point this afternoon. I got his direct line. I got a time that I was going to call him, and we had a really, really good chat. So the key insight and the key piece of information that I was able to take away from that conversation was the weirder, the better, and make sure you've got a case study in it. So that's exactly what we did. We came up with a campaign that had all of those assets, and then when we took it out to press, it worked and resulted in this. So, moving one slide forward. Thank you. The tip here then for this section is find the most popular writers and start to build relationships with them. Start to warm them up. Let them know what brands you're working with, and let them know way in advance of a launch when you're actually going to be outreaching with content or data. Section 2 then, links. Which title out of those 6 gives the most links? My gut feel said The Sun. Now, my gut says that because we've had a lot of success with The Sun, and if you get a campaign covered in The Sun, of course it goes across the Scottish Sun and sun.ie as well. So you almost get 3 separate links with just one hit. What was really interesting here then is that we found that actually the Daily Star came out on top with the site that gives the most number of external links on average per feature, then followed by the MailOnline, Sun, Telegraph, all sitting at around 2 external links per article published, Independent 1, and of course the Express. We were actually able to confirm that they have a no linking policy here. It's right there. You're probably never going to get a followed link from them. So my tip here then is prioritize the Daily Star with your prospecting and the journalists that you're speaking to. They actually give out a really high number of followed links. This graph here then shows the average number of links per article, per sector. So if you're working with a specific brand in any one of these sectors, then you know that these are the kind of sites you need to prioritize in the national press. So for travel, we've got the Daily Telegraph shining through with around 8 external links. And again, what's really interesting with my point before is that you can see the Daily Star on that leaderboard twice. So again, gut instinct, where's the sun? And that goes back to the fact that yes, we have had previous success with the sun, but I really, really would have expected to see that site on that table. So my tip here then is offer the leading title per sector, your exclusive when you're looking to launch that campaign. Don't go out cold, start to warm them up in the weeks before. It's going to make things a whole lot easier and take the pressure off you guys when you actually press the big green launch button. Now, keeping on the subject of links, we were also able to see which were the most linked to brands overall. Now, there was some clear kind of affiliate kind of relationships going on with the likes of GoSim, but on the next slide here, you can see where it gets really, really interesting. And Reddit and .gov.uk were on the top 10 leaderboard. Reddit is a source of news for journalists. We found that when we get our content on that site in particular, it often gets more engagement, and journalists have picked it up as a result. And with gov.uk, it proves to me that journalists are looking for data, and as content marketers and outreachers, we have that, so we should be giving it to them. So, why is this insightful then? Well, I looked at one of the articles that had a .gov.uk link in it, and it was in the Sun Motors and was kind of centering around driving, licenses, and how dangerous it would be if you were to kind of get a speeding fine and then get your mum, brother, whoever to take it. Looking at that article and going one step deeper, yes, there was a .gov link in there, but there was also another campaign from another brand. So you can see here, 1 in 5 drivers admit to taking points from other people. Look at this lovely little link here, a recent survey by Co-op Insurance. Now again, this is really interesting because it means that when journalists are linking out to .gov, the Co-op were able to get in there with their own data, and journalists are looking for data. We should be giving them some, right? It seems easy when you look at it like that. We can also learn from these campaigns. So I did a little bit of digging, and I went and found the actual site and the campaign that got the link, and we were able to see the different angles that the Co-op took when they were talking about automotive, and the different data as well that was able to get that all-important link in the Sun feature. So my tip here then is use data to find the sites and journalists that are linking out to those different kind of top 10 brands, and pitch your own relevant content in there. Get in there using those kind of, the .gov link, get in there with your own data that's on brand. Finally then, subject lines, and this for me is where it got the most interesting. So I took all of the headlines with various different sectors and started playing around with word clouds. And what was really interesting per sector is that there was some striking differences and some real core similarities. So for the travel press, we were able to see that revealed, new, best, and destinations were shining through as some of the most common words that are used within headlines. In finance, obviously Brexit was going to come out. That is the word of the moment. New, top, save, and revealed again. Going forward one more, into the technology sector, we've got experts, revealed, new, data, study. And in the automotive sphere, again, revealed, new, and test. Now, there's some really, really, really striking similarities with those word clouds. And again, we can go one step deeper with the data and start to look at the different journalists that are using this language as well. So here is an example of a word cloud from an automotive journalist where you can see he's also using all of the language that we've previously pulled out. Just look how much he's using revealed. He's also using new and drivers as well. And there's a key learning here. So we can start to use this language with what we're saying to journalists in our subject lines. And the best words to be using within our subject lines when we're writing emails to journalists are, no doubt, revealed, best, new, data, study. And again, at Era, we put this into practice. So we sent out an email, and it said, new data reveals that 28% of drivers have broken laws unknowingly. This is exactly what it could look like on the screen. Nice, short, succinct, so you're grabbing that journalist's attention really quickly and really easily. And using BuzzStream, we were starting to track the use of the words that I just recommended to you there, and we got a 48% increase with our open rate using data, new, and reveals in our pitch subject lines. So again, it really, really, really works, and it's worthwhile setting this kind of scrape up. So my final tip here then is analyze headlines and use the language in subject lines to increase your chances of success. So, in summary, and to pull everything back together, We've just proven that we actually don't need to rely on just gut feel alone anymore. We can team it up with data and make our campaign outreach far more successful. And if you take one thing away today, it would be use this framework, set up your own scrape. I did it with nationals, but you could do it with vertical sector press like engineering, travel. It doesn't really matter. But get insights that matter to you and the brands that you're working with so that you can supercharge your outreach efforts. A quick refresher then in terms of what to scrape, and again, I will share my slides after, so you don't need to worry too much about scribbling everything down. And finally, this will help you. So setting up this scrape will absolutely help you make more informed outreach decisions. More informed outreach decisions will make way for more consistent results. We are living and working in an incredibly inconsistent industry, and therefore you won't receive emails like I did in February. Thank you very much, guys.